It's 6:30. Good evening, everyone. We'll open the meeting tonight, and this is a special meeting that was called for April the 29th. Like everybody's here. Everybody ready to proceed forward?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, thank you for coming tonight to the special meeting, and I hate we couldn't hear your item 2 weeks ago when it was on, but hopefully we can take care of business tonight. What I want to do is take a roll call first to make sure we have a quorum here. Mr. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Huffine,
Here.
Ms. Benesh,
Here.
Chair Ward is here. Mr. Wooten,
Here.
Mr. Docker,
Here.
and Mr. Yaw.
Here.
Thank you. If everyone would please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone is here tonight, if you wish to be heard during the matter that pertains to you, you will be able to speak before us. And I will just call you to the front. If you would, just state your name and your address, please. All right. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes for last month's meeting?
Yes, sir.
Any changes, notations need to be made? I will entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the last two meetings.
Second.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And Cameron, let's move on to item number 6A.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Ward. So in front of you all for 6A is a request to rezone 0.83 acres of land at 113 West Gilbert Street from R7 high density residential to CB conditional business for the purpose of allowing a hair salon to be utilized as home occupation as an accessory use to the single family home. The use is proposed to incur inside of the attached accessory structure while the primary use of the single family home will remain. Our development ordinance currently does not permit these types of uses to be utilized as home occupations, and that is why the applicant is requesting this zoning classification in front of you all today. The property is listed on the future land use map as downtown residential. Downtown residential land use area describes principal uses in this zone are predominantly detached single-family homes, and that new neighborhoods may include a range of duplexes. It also states that supporting uses in the area are places of worship, daycares, park facilities, schools, civic spaces, designated neighborhood centers that may include neighborhood-oriented commercial, small professional office, live-work units, and home occupations, provided they do not generate excessive traffic and parking. The applicant has requested a condition that the site plan requirement be waived due to the nature of this request, and showing kind of in detail what they have provided with pictures of parking and where the proposed use is going to be located, as well as signage. And that is all that I have currently.
Thank you. Is the petitioner, Ms. Eulis, here? Phone up, please. State your name and your address, please.
Nadia Eulis Pickens, 113 West Gilbert Street in Graham.
Okay. Tell us what you're trying to achieve here.
I'm wanting to open a home-based salon at my mom's residence. She has a guest house that's situated to the side of her house, and she'll be 80 coming June 15th. And she's had a lot of health problems between strokes and falls and replacements. And so I'm needing to be with her more often. And the salon that I was working at for 26 years, June Bird, she was diagnosed with dementia about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's gotten really bad. So we had to close the salon down. Actually, my last day was last Thursday. And I want to open this, like I said, so I can be closer to mom and still have my part-time appointments. I only work part-time, and it'll be by appointments only.
Okay. How many clients do you expect to see per day?
Usually about 5 on Wednesdays and Thursdays and every other Saturdays.
Okay, and what's your hours of operation?
With my son in school, I usually work based on clients and their needs too. It's usually between 2 and 5 on average. Some days I'll go in by 12, but usually it's just afternoon. Like I said, it's part-time.
Okay. And I noticed from the photographs here, is the guest house, if I'm standing out in the road facing the house, that's to the left?
It's on the far left, yes, sir. It's her main house is to the right. She has an attached garage. Then there's a breezeway, and then it's the guest house, which was her mom's. She built, when her mom lived there. It's just been vacant.
Okay, and as far as parking for the salon, is it gonna be right here in the circle or
Yeah,
around? back?
There's at least two parking, which I only have one client at a time. I never overbook clients. That's my thing. I don't like people waiting. So there's plenty for two parking up front, and then in the rear, which also has a cemented path that goes around back. I mean, I could park 8, but average, I'd have one person at a time.
Okay, and I noticed you put a size on your sign. Is that the actual size that you're gonna?
Yes, it's approximately 18 inches by 12. It's just a small sign, freestanding. I'm gonna have up close to the front door. When you walk around, there's a path in front of it, so there's a grassy area and then the home. I don't know if y'all have photos. I have photos here if you need it. Um, but there's a grassy area I'm just gonna have there. I don't want anything at the road or anything like that. Like I said, it's just no walk-ins, no anything like that. So it's just a small sign.
And as far as handicap or anything like that, are you limited, do you have any type of limitations that would
Is
prevent a
fully
wheelchair?
handicapped. My grandmother, she was in a wheelchair. And so the pathway, all the door jambs, everything, the cabinets, the sinks, grab bars in the bathroom, so it's completely fully accessible. It also has 2 separate entrances, so you can go in the front or out through the side breezeway.
Anyone else?
And I've also spoke with the neighbors and received approval from Chad Oakley. He's at 114 West Gilbert Street, right across the street.
Mhm.
Tim and Renee, he's at 112 West Gilbert Street, which is to the left. Kathy Harrington, which is at 121 West Gilbert Street. Dallas Myers, he's a renter at 320 Maple Street. Nikki and Corey Smith at 402 Maple Street, and Chris Eulis, who spoke to his mom, Donna Eulis. They're at 316 Maple Street. The only neighbor that's attached that I couldn't get a hold of was Diagonal. She's just never home. I spoke with everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
I have no question.
Papa?
Just two. My question is for Cameron.
Yes, sir.
So Cameron, in the absence of a plan, will we or has the staff had a chance to go verify the handicap accessibility? Or will that get done before council hears this case?
So I think that one would also have to be hashed out whenever we write a zoning permit for the area out there after this is approved. And the building inspections department will be the ones to assess whether or not it is deemed to be handicap accessible to that area.
Just so there's no
Oh, yes.
surprises when, if the zoning were to be approved, that you're expecting something that if come up later from building inspections, that
Right.
there's something that's
Understand.
got to be handled. The second thing is, again, for Cameron, in the absence of the plan, is there language in the application that specifies just the hair and cosmetology use? Conditional business is broad if it's not conditioned. So we want to make sure we address Ms. Eulis's needs, but also the surrounding neighborhoods.
Yes, sir. I think I know where you're going at, and I was gonna mention this as well. There is a specific use for if I can find a hair salon. Or I think it may be more classified as barber shop, beauty shop, nail salon, is classified in that CB. So what I would suggest is if you were to make a recommendation for approval, that only permit that specific use and the single family use to be approvable in this area, so that there couldn't be something else in this attached area of the CB nature. If that makes sense.
Should we also think about the accessory dwelling unit in your mom's case?
That's what I was gonna reflect to next about the accessory, because they all have 2 dwellings there and a business.
So the business will be operated in this space, correct?
Correct.
That's the accessory dwelling area, there's gonna be no aspect of accessory dwelling in there anymore, right?
No,
But
Um,
there is another house on that property right there that is a guest house, right? What's that there?
that's a garage.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. I think she took a picture of it on here as well.
It is, it's in there, right there, right back. Yep, sideways, sorry.
And it
Is
got some
that-
green.
is no living above it?
No, sir.
Okay. That answers that.
Well,
Mr. Dish?
I don't actually have any questions. I'm familiar with the property. The only question that I had was what he was referring to, and the other was the possibility of what you're going to touch on as well, Chairman Ward, is in the future, we don't want to have something in there that doesn't need to be in there. If you,
That's one question I also had when I retire, will it go, can I get it to just go back to residential full use? So I don't have to, or just, how do I go about that?
You would likely have to come back and either amend this rezoning or rezone it back to what its initial classification was.
Okay,
Um, It may, and that may be a discussion that's outside of this meeting between you and I. Because currently the city of Graham does not really support accessory dwelling units inside of their ordinance. And maybe by that time, something will change. But if it was to be, it's a non-conforming use right now with that accessory dwelling in its existence. It goes away within 180 days, it essentially has to come back into a conforming use. So if you were to want to live there in the future, you'd have to rezone it and hope that there's some type of amendment for the accessory dwelling to be there, or change the conditional request to a residential, which allows the accessory dwelling. So it's a
Okay.
whole kind of procedural process that we.
that was my main question tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Eulis, Mayor, one of the concerns, God forbid anything ever happened to you. We have to look at it as in the event of type thing. So we want to make sure our language is right so that it doesn't become something it shouldn't in the future, regardless if it doesn't get rezoned.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Had two questions. They've already been sort of touched on. First of all was the ADA compliance. And second was what we were talking about just then about the zoning. If the property passed into other hands, either by sales or by inheritance or something like that,
Exactly.
how would that affect the zoning? Would that continue? Would it need to be changed?
So if you all were to make the recommendation to approve based on the condition that it stays single family and the hair salon operates in that is the only thing it could be utilized for. Regardless if it gets passed down from generation to generation, that is the only thing that it can be utilized for.
yeah, does it, I have living rights to it through my mom through the estate. I don't know if that will affect anything negatively or not.
Even if she were to sell it to somebody else, they would be able to live in the space on the right and would only be able to operate in the commercial sense on that left side, a hair salon.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Doctor? Hey, Mr. Young. Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
More. If anyone else like to speak? Have a public hearing and have a discussion amongst ourselves here. Open it, the whole meeting, open it, public hearing. Discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion. Mr. Huffman?
Would we want to go ahead and include in the conditions for the benefit of the Eulis family, the single family use, the hair salon, the cosmetology, and the use as an accessory dwelling unit? If she stops a hair business but needs a place for mom to live separate in the house, we need to be able to accommodate that so she doesn't have to come back before council.
Absolutely.
I think that accomplishes what everybody wants to accomplish.
See, that's
Make sure, I guess, in that it's just a 1-in-1, so it's not an accessory dwelling unit at the same time as a hair salon, right? So it have to
That's
be
right,
either one.
that's right.
One or the other.
That's right. We want to include both in the entitlement, but they wouldn't
Right.
occur simultaneously.
Yes, sir.
You'd either cut hair or somebody live there.
Perfect.
Hold on, drop it out for us. I'll help you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezoning request for 113 West Gilbert Street. Is that the correct
Yeah.
address?
Second.
With the,
Oh,
thank
easy.
you, Jim. With the conditions that, number one, the uses be limited to and include a single-family residence. The use is the accessory building as either hair and cosmetology or accessory dwelling unit. And that the exterior accessibility be verified prior to the hearing for city council.
Can I add a couple of things?
In order to read.
And that it is consistent with policy 2.1.1 diverse job market and also policy 2.1.6 a locally owned business. And policy 2.3.2 innovative space.
I second it.
Have a motion and I have a second by Mr. Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. Cameron, let's see if we can get Mr. Moffett and the Vernon Law Firm out of here.
I'll come back to that.
All right.
Hectic doing two things at once.
Hey,
Respect Miss Debbie's job in here a lot more.
you're multitasking. We got you.
Yes, sir, no problem. All right, there we go. Okay. So for 6B, city staff has received a request for a text amendment to define and create a use classification for multi-tenant industrial facilities. Currently, the development ordinance does not have a specified use for this proposed type of development. We have an approved use for single industrial buildings and unified business developments. And the unified business developments are particular to shopping centers and commercial developments. They do not permit any I-1 uses in these developments, even after being allowed in the I-1 zoning district. As of right now, there is no way for staff to approve these types of developments, as the closest related zoning use we can choose from is the unified business developments. We have received multiple new requests for these types of developments and have suggested that a text amendment was proposed to define them in our ordinance. And that is what is in front of you all today.
Thank you.
And there is a memo, I believe, on behalf of Mr. Brown as well, along with the definition and how it would lie in the table of permitted uses.
All right. I'll hear from you. State your name and address, please.
Taylor, do you want you sent me a PowerPoint. Make sure.
Hello and good evening. My name is Taylor Squires. I'm an attorney with the Vernon Law Firm located at 522 South Lexington Avenue in Burlington. My colleague Lawson Brown and I represent Welcome I-40 as it relates to the text amendment that is before you this evening.
Pardon me, ma'am. Can you move the mic just a little bit closer? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
My colleague Lawson Brown and I represent Welcome I-40 as it relates to the text amendment that is before you this evening. Welcome I-40 is in the preliminary planning process and stages of a commercial development project that would be located along Cherry Lane and backing into I-40, I-85 on the site that's depicted above. From a site planning perspective, Welcome I-40 would like to erect 5 separate buildings. Each building may be used for a different purpose. We intend industrial, distribution, warehousing, as well as office space, or alternatively, a combination of both office space and distribution centers. We have been working with Cameron and the city of Graham to try to vet this text amendment. And Cameron, we appreciate, I know we've had several meetings, so we appreciate your efforts helping us get here this evening. As it stands, the UDO does not include a permitted use that aligns with the project that Welcome I-40 would like to bring into Graham at this time. So as Cameron mentioned, there's uniform business developments. We have individual warehouses, but we don't have a use type that has the combination of both the industrial distribution as well as the office spaces. So we are here today requesting a text amendment that would align with Welcome I-40's intended use. That text amendment would read as follows. The multi-occupancy distribution and warehouse, which would be established for industry, assembly, fabrication, warehousing, and/or distribution with single or occupants on site with adequate access to highways, thoroughfares, streets, roads, and with adequate utilities. The transportation adequacy being subject to the Technical Review Committee's requirements and approval. Such use would be permitted by right in I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. Again, we're asking for a amendment to the current UDO to add a new use type to table 10.135 of the UDO. Ready to address any questions that you guys may have related to that text amendment.
Cameron, if you would, go back to that drawing that showed that layout there.
Yes, sir.
Presuming that that was what was there or going there, is that going to be a leased property or are they going to be individually owned partials?
It could be a combination of the two. So there could be some space that's owned and retained by Welcome I-40, or they might, after they erect the building, they may sell it out for industry purposes to a warehouse or manufacturing developer.
So Cameron, with that being proposed there, if it's actually sold and it's an individual partial, then would the text amendment be necessary?
So that's kind of currently where we're at. Like Taylor said, this project's been going on since about 2022, I believe. So from what we gathered is initially the city of Graham planning staff was going to allow these to be on individual parcels and operate as individual units. Once you start to include multiple uses inside of one building on a single parcel is where the development ordinance doesn't necessarily have the classification for such. So even if you take and put lot lines on each one of these and subdivide, or not subdivide, but cut into thirds or fourths into each one of these buildings for different tenants, that's when it comes into play. But if it was going to be, used and maintained by one person in a specific use and not to go beyond that, then we wouldn't have any issues with it because it would just be an industrial building on a single lot. Even as it's shown right now, if it was going to be kind of all this, multiple buildings with different tenants inside of there, you'd still need it because it's all on one single lot. But if they were lotted out by themselves, then that's when it wasn't an issue. I think that's where we were at initially. And they had recently got approval on this building 3 back here, because I think we have subdivided or combined these parcels into 2. You can't really tell on this plan, but essentially it's 2 parcels broken kind of by this stream area through here. And they have an approved set of plans for building 3 back here with the understanding that it was going to be one tenant. And so once, and to be subdivided as such, moving forward, build a road, subdivide, somebody use building 4, build the road, subdivide building 5, all with single tenants. But they're wanting to take building 3 and cut it into thirds and let 3 different tenants inside of there. And I think that's where our ordinance lacks. And like I said, the closest thing we have is the business development side of things, which has some type of language that permits it, but only with it being utilized for B2 uses. So essentially looking to create another business industrial development classification with this, where it kind of identifies the same criteria and puts it to scale for this type of development and other ones. Like I mentioned, this is not the only one we've received. I think this one's on the larger scale, but we've also received some requests for smaller, different types of uses with multiple buildings spread out with different smaller warehouses of like the 2,000-3,000 square foot kind of foot area, where this one, of course, would be relatively larger.
So with multiple tenants in an I-1 or an I-2, are the businesses going to be required to be light or heavy industrial? Or could it be any type of business operating in there?
So I think when you classify them in the definition, it would be for just those that are permitted inside the I-1 and I-2 zoning district.
So be the only ones that's permitted would be what's permitted by permitted of use.
Yes, sir. In
Okay,
the
and
I-1 and
I
I-2.
two, okay. That's all I got for right now. Open it up to anybody else.
I would like to know approximately where on Cherry Lane that is proposed to be.
So this is probably better. You got I-40 85 right here. There's a parcel of land and it's kind of all inside of this area. So here is Old Fields. Here is Cherry Creek,
Okay,
I believe,
it's,
so it's a little bit further down.
Okay, I know exactly where it is now.
Down by the Leader Center.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. I got it. Okay, it's on the other side. Gotcha.
Yeah, just on the other side is the golf.
Right.
Yes,
The
sir.
baiting cage. Size, the square footage, do we have any?
We do have proposed square footage for each building, but the total square footage for the buildings would be approximately 745,000 square feet of building space.
You said that's total for all five?
That's for all
buildings?
5, yes.
But that's not gonna fall into Commerce Park either, is it? That tract of land there is not part of the Commerce Park.
That's a bigger discussion with the admin folks. I don't think so because, I could be wrong. I do not know the answer to that. I think we are the only ones that have service for water and sewer in this area. And Welcome Group is extending those services from a non-commerce park line. That's the only thing that I can kind of really throw. But again, don't quote me on that because that's probably a more admin discussion question.
Mr. Helfand?
I just got a couple of questions for Cameron
Yes, sir.
while you're standing. Cameron, can you read the language for unified business development? Its definition.
Yes, sir. So of course, there's 2 classifications of unified business developments. We got unified business development, light and heavy. The description of such unified business development consists of one or more principal structures or buildings together with accessory structures or buildings containing 2 or more stores, service establishment, offices, or other permitted uses. Development of this type is planned, organized, or managed to function as a unified whole and featuring all the following: common driveways, common parking, common signage, common landscaping plan. Examples are shopping centers, retail centers, office parks, and business parks having the characteristics listed above. Such unified business developments may include out parcels for lease or for sale, which may be intersected by public streets. Any such unified business development may be organized as a condominium or in a manner along and to that of a townhouse development, with ownership of parcels beneath the building units with parking and driveways being in common area owned and maintained by an owners association. Probably fall into this next bit of pieces. There's a one about administrative approval. When the anticipated traffic load is less than 250 vehicles per day, the approval for this UBD may be treated as a unified business development light and be considered used by right by the city planner or referred to city council as they so choose. However, if the traffic increases beyond this amount or is anticipated to increase beyond this amount, the applicant must come before the city council to be approved. And then we can go into uses permitted in these. So like I said, there's classifications. They are permitted as a special use permit or use by right in the B2 and I1 district, dependent upon the traffic count. All uses permitted in the B2 district are permitted, except for the following uses which are not permitted: residential dwellings, animal hospitals, automobile sales, car wash, amusement, parks, bottling or dairy plant, commercial campgrounds, camping vehicle parks, contractor storage yards, daycare centers, farm equipment sales, storage and repair, funeral homes, golf courses, hospitals, kennels, laundries, except self-service lodges, manufactured home sales, nursing homes, plumbing shops, sign shops, stone cutting, monument manufacturing sales, tattoo business, tire recapping and retreading, truck sales, veterinarian and wholesale distributors. And there's mentions about drive-through establishments.
Before you continue, was that the list of prohibited uses?
Yes, sir. So all uses permitted in the B2 are permitted except for the following: And then it kind of listed out everything that I mentioned before. So
But it doesn't cover I2 uses.
it does not cover I1 or I2 uses. And that's where the issue we run into is because if you have it in the I1 use, just because it's in the I1 doesn't mean that it's going to be allowed to have I1 uses. In the B2 and I1 districts, you are only allowed to have B2 district uses except for what's listed through there. There is mention in here about I2, all permitted uses in the underlying district are allowed within the heavy industrial district. However, something got changed after 2016 when this was implemented and the I2 special use classification was no longer inside of the development ordinance table of permitted uses, so it's not allowable by a special use permit or anything. And so that's why, like I said, this is kind of before you all today.
Okay, let me go a couple of steps further.
Yes, sir.
Can you identify or define? And this is in Taylor's language. Can you identify or define the word site as it is may or may not be different from building or parcels? Because we want to make sure that they are adequately covered by the language. The site could be any site. We want to make sure that the parcels, the buildings, and that language is very clear, because you can have multiple tenants in one building.
Yeah,
You
for
can have
sure.
multiple tenants on one piece of property. This whole thing functions as a site, but it could be parceled off or rented in separate segments.
Is this in, I guess, what is this in relation to question wise? Is it with the definition that they provided when it says with single or multi occupants on sites with adequate access to highways? Or is it just with,
It might need to be a substitution of language, including parcels, buildings, and properties, because sites could be a dry cleaner site that's a half acre.
It's
Could be
very.
a 100-acre job site.
for sure.
Very vague.
I get that as well. And I think that's, one of the reasons why we bring it in front of you all as well is to have this, kind of overall discussion for what might work out in the best sense. So I think, we're definitely ready to have a discussion about this and get something that is kind of inherent to what you all see.
In my mind, I read it multi-occupants on or in buildings, parcels, or properties.
I guess it could, there could be for sale, per se, I guess a single parcel that puts up one building that has 3 different people inside of it, right? So that one, of course, is probably different to what they are proposing up here. So it's also trying to make that mix between how both of those kind of work out in this language, right? So I see you're giving me a
But it
confusion.
kind of leads to, would it cause an influx of more development of small sections of these areas being developed under acreage parcels or
Mhm.
site, depending on the size of that site? And then you move them closer to residential areas and that type of stuff because of the size. It's not very defining.
Yes, sir. Just to move conversation along, could you look at it in the same sense of how it's discussed with the unified business development? Talking about one or more building structures, however it's labeled in that, kind of more or less in that regard, to kind of tie it together a little bit more, I guess.
In that language specifically for unified business development, what is the noun for the property, the site, the building? I just don't remember hearing the word site in the unified business development language.
One or more principal structures or building, together with accessory structures or buildings containing 2 or more stores, service establishments, offices, or other permitted uses. So it doesn't even mention anything about a site, right? So I guess it's adherent to a lot itself, or, and of course, that's what our zoning
We need
ordinance
to be
looks
clear
at.
on that.
It's, I mean, if you're looking at a single parcel, I don't think you could take and you'd have to essentially combine two parcels of land to be able to span it across one or the other with the connected driveways, however it's looked at, where they need access to these thoroughfares as mentioned. Just because you got a landlocked parcel in the back, you'd probably have to combine it to be one single lot itself.
Maybe then we remove the word site so that it's consistent with the language in the Unified Business Development, so that it includes all of those nouns for properties or buildings.
I agree.
So just talking about established for industry, assembly, fabrication, warehousing, or distribution with single or multi occupancies with
adequate
on
access.
sites, and then just keep on going with adequate or my,
Adequate access.
Remove the word
Take out the
site.
preposition on site.
yeah, just take out on sites and kind of move from there. Gotcha.
And then I guess my second part, in the uses that are identified, industry and assembly, fabrication, warehousing, and or distribution, would one want to consider is the presentation of office space? I know we run across that in Unified Business Developments, so would we want to also indicate office space? And I don't know if it's ancillary, but the item that there's an office almost at every one of the locations. We don't want to exclude that and then be tripped up later on because we didn't include it.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see if what it mentions about office spaces in reference to I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. And that may kind of settle a little bit of it. P.
And then I guess a question for Taylor while you're looking is, do any of these industry, assembly, fabrication, warehouse, distribution, and office, do they have sales included in that?
Not that I'm aware of, but I wouldn't want to limit the potential if the client would like to distribute items. I guess with distribution, is that another word for sale?
Is it?
I think a way to look at it as well is, you know, if you're thinking about prohibiting uses, you almost take a look at what's permitted and not permitted inside of the I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. Because if it's on, I may go back to what you were mentioning earlier, Chair Ward, about, you know, the permitted uses. You know, the I-2 uses wouldn't be permitted if it was developed on an I-1 lot. Only the I-1 uses would be permitted inside of there. And maybe that is like, I'm trying to look through where the office space says, if there's particular uses that you wouldn't want to see in these types of areas of multi-tenant industrial or distribution and warehouse, I guess, is, you know, you could subject to without these specific ones, right? Kind of like how it laid out in the Unified Business Development. All uses in the I-1 and I-2 are approved except X, Y, and Z, if that's kind of where they're going for.
I think what Mr. Hines is alluding to is someone having the ability to have drive up business, so to speak, and sales point of interest at that particular site. which
sure.
is another indication that you're opening up an avenue of lots of traffic that probably wouldn't be in most of these developments.
I don't think that that's the intention of Welcome I-40, because if it were, we would be looking at the unified business development that already exists in the table of permitted uses, because that aligns with the shopping centers and the sale of goods.
Yes, ma'am, I totally understand that, but that's something that we as a board have to look at closely to make sure that we don't miss that little loophole
Yes,
that
sir.
may develop. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, you sit here and look through, and see potential uses that are permitted inside of the, you know, I-1 and I-2 zoning district. There is, you know, some that could have that overlapping aspect. It's really, you know, if there is a specific set of, uses that you would see beneficial most in here, because after looking at the office spaces with less than 5 employees is a permitted use by right in the I-1, but office spaces with more than 5 employees is not a permitted use by right. So you're kind of having to base this, it's distribution and warehouse. We're really only, you know, honing it in for these types of industry, assembly, fabrication, warehousing, or distribution. No retail or something in there, could also be discussed. But like you said, I mean, you're having to take a look at the bigger picture because this is not just gonna impact their property out there. There's gonna be other people, as I mentioned, that are trying to take
Exactly.
use of this as well. And you wanna definitely make sure you get it right, so we're not having to come back and, shoot ourselves in the foot or whatnot. So I completely understand. Um,
Does it give you an office in the I-2 district?
nah, let me see. I just had it up, of course.
Is that needed?
So we got contractors' offices in the I-1 and I-2, which is definitely different than the office space of a lawyer's office or whatever it may be. Office space, more than 5 employees, no. So only less than 5 employees is permitted in the I-1. I-2 does not permit either or. Um,
Please.
Taylor. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Ryan Moffett. I'm colleagues with Ms. Squires here at the Vernon Law Firm. One thing I was going to just address about the office is this is a great discussion, and Mr. Huff, I appreciate the questions and leading us to this point. I think we want to think about this generally as an industrial use. And it's easy. We've got a conceptual site plan to look at what this could look like at a particular site. But I think we're looking for Graham's development ordinance to be able to accommodate a multi-tenant type industrial development where you've got one owner, whether that be one owner of a parcel with multiple buildings on it, which those multiple buildings could then have multiple tenants, or you could have a single parcel with a single building with multiple tenants. But those buildings are probably going to have office space in them for more than 5 employees, just like Walmart's distribution center does, just like Lidl, just like any of the industrial uses that we've seen come online in recent years. Those to me are not principal uses. And so I don't want to, while I think it may be worth considering adding office uses to the industrial, all the I-1 and I-2 uses, that makes sense. But at the same time, I'm not sure that we need to do that because the office use is not the principal use. It's attendant to the industrial use, which we want to see I-1 and I-2 uses permitted in this new multi-tenant use. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If I wasn't clear.
And it should be the primary, whatever the primary use is going to be, because you know that each and every one of these warehouses, whether they're in the Commerce Park or whether it's going to be here on Cherry Lane,
Yeah.
are going to have some type of office space in them.
And they'll also have, some major furniture distributors have sale
Right.
floors as well, that are kind of accessory to it. And accessory uses are permitted in the I-1 and I-2 zoning district as well. So I mean, it's.
I just don't want to see a call center come out there and go in that building in this industrial space and
Yeah,
they got it big enough and they bring a call center in and then they got 300 employees sitting there in a call center.
and I think that the definition kind of hits on that because that wouldn't fall into that kind of industry, assembly, fabrication, warehousing, or distribution class. And I think that is something that we can kind of bank on and have the judgment of staff over here to determine, okay, what does this actually mean in our development ordinance? The one thing that I think I do want to kind of hone in on, because I don't know, it's kind of difficult and it's not really mentioned in here, but definitely something to take into consideration because I think the idea of the I-1 and I-2 zoning districts, right? And whether or not we want to have those combined and permit every single I-1 and I-2 zoning uses to go inside of the I-1 zoning district, like they kind of have shown out here, because this is an I-1 zone lot. And kind of in my mind is if it's approvable in the I-1 district over here, then only the approvable uses in the I-1 associated with these industry assembly fabrication. If it's an I-2 lot, then you're including all of those in there as well. So like I said, that's just kind of my thought process to it. I want to bounce that off of you all. I don't know if that makes any difference or not. But like I said, I'd rather be transparent during this meeting than have it come up after the fact. If we're talking about, oh, I thought I-2 uses were going to be permitted in this I-1 district. And that's just not kind of how I would see this amendment moving forward.
No, I agree with you, Cameron. When we we filed a special use permit, and that's what we ran into was the issue was the unified business development was only allowed in certain zoning districts. So that did not align with what we were looking at today.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, even like say, you know, I'm trying to think of a use that's permitted in the I-2 that's not permitted in the I-1.
Rubber products.
Yeah, so I mean, having a rubber product would not essentially be something that will be permitted in one of these areas through here since it's a overall I-1 zoned lot, if that makes sense. But if it was an I-2 zone lot, you can include both those I-2 and I-1 uses if they're permitted in both, if that kind of makes sense. Like I said, just want to be at the forefront with you all and you all as well.
I think, oh, Cameron, that we're getting a little skewed there if we prevent that, because it's just like paperboard containers and boxes is permitted for I-2, but not permitted in I-1.
Mhm.
All these warehouses that are shipping parts are gonna have paperboard and boxes.
I think it's more or less like your creation of such, not necessarily the distribution of them, because that would be classified at, but if they were manufacturing these paper boxes, it's like almost like a paper mill, right? If somebody was creating paper, that's an I-2 use to the T. But if they're getting the paper from these paper mills and distributing them out, then I think that's where the difference may lie in my eyes at least.
But wouldn't you think that that would coincide with I-1 and I-2? That use would be,
That's not what the development ordinance currently says. So, you know, we could sit here and have a whole meeting and hash out what we think deserves to be in the I-1 and I-2 zoning district.
I certainly I don't wanna overlap them if it creates a obstacle.
And if they're approved in both the I-1 and the I-2, then it's no issue to have them in the I-1 at all. But if it's only allowed in the I-2, like you said, the rubber, then you're not going to be able to have a rubber distributor or, well, the distributor side of it's fine. It's just the manufacturing of it itself. So if somebody had tires that they were shipping out, it's one thing. If they were actually retreading tires, creating the tires, doing all the rubber stuff, that's a different story.
Okay.
And so that's up for them to be forefront whenever they're doing their zoning permit and for us to determine whether or not we can approve it in that area or not. So that is the one kind of beneficial factor that we have is all of these uses that come in here, they have to file zoning permits. So we have the ability on front hand to see whether or not something like this is going to be an approvable use in there or not. Like I said, the kind of what we're trying to do is be able to create that type of use to where they can come in here and have 3 different uses inside of one building.
Okay. Follow?
Let me just boil it down to a little bit of a layman's terms. Would multi-occupancy distribution and warehouse be a use that is an X in the I-1 table?
Saying what specific use? I'm sorry, manufacturing.
Multi-occupancy distribution and warehouse, as defined with the rest of that statement or sentence or paragraph, would that become an X in the light industrial table?
Yes, sir. So how it's listed out right now, well, maybe back to the full screen.
And I think that's what we're here to agree to or disagree with.
Yeah, so how they have it right now is the defined multi-occupancy distribution and warehouse would be a permitted use by right in both the I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. Yes, sir.
That is a use type, just
Yes,
like a
sir.
paper mill, just like a cell phone manufacturer.
But it's
Those
not like
four
a-
words define a use type.
that is subsequent to the definition that it states. It's almost like it
That's
has
correct.
subsections of other uses inside of there.
That's correct. I think, didn't you remove the word on sites? And
Yeah.
Except the
I
fact
think
that,
that's our, get over the hurdle, take sites that were.
except the fact that office is
Take
ancillary
sites.
to the main principal use and then.
Yeah.
you go with the text and I think.
And-
that's the-
You know, just as, no, that's fine. Perfectly fine. No, sir. I was gonna mention something about, you know, this also will have to take a look by the technical review committee. And the location of these are also, you know, being, you know, looked at by us as well to determine if this is even a space where it's, you know, adequate for, you know, for this, access to all these areas and giving us the potential to request these types of, TIAs essentially, but most of them probably gonna be on NCDOT roads anyway, so they may have a trigger as well. So just an extra layer of, support, comfort, maybe it may be for these types of things for y'all.
Is there a need to, include in the text amendment, no retail sales?
I don't think so. No, sir.
Okay,
Um,
that's one of the reasons I was asking. It's a vague area, but I didn't think it needed to be added.
I mean, I think if you have a concern of, the mixing of uses, you can kind of maybe throw something in there in regards to, I'm seeing head shake no.
Now,
not
I
just-
don't
That's all.
see it. I was just
Yeah.
asking that question.
One of the things it mentions in the UBD is like not having the crossover of traffic from.
Exactly.
But with you have all industrial, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay,
Make the water muddy.
makes it a lot cleaner, yes.
Yes, sir. I
Any-
understand.
Any further questions for Ms.
Yeah.
Myers?
And, y'all kind of been dancing around a couple of my questions here. I just wanted to make sure that I would agree with the, removal of the verbiage on sites from the text amendment. And I just want some verification, as Chair Ward mentioned just a moment ago. I don't want to see a call center going in out there or a corporate headquarters or whatever
Yes, sir.
mixed in that same site. Suddenly you've got a lot of traffic and all manner of other things that,
As long as it falls within the I-1 or the I-2, whichever way, whichever parcels.
Yeah.
I'm a
whatever,
fan.
whatever's allowed, it's limited by those two. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure it was
Yes, sir.
clear that we're not going to have a combination of corporate site, corporate sales, call center, whatever it might be in combination with whatever you develop out there in terms of
believe what-
distribution.
Yes, sir. I believe what Welcome I-40 envisions is a distribution where you store goods and then out of that warehouse, you would ship goods out. So it's not intended for a call center or a basis that would be open to the public or with a lot of public traffic in and out of that building.
Further questions?
Yes, are these gonna be spec buildings, build-to-suit buildings, or, tenants, in it before it's built, or
So
specs?
I believe it's going to be based, and there's going to be different phases of buildings. So some of them may be spec buildings, and then you have others that after one phase is built, you have that occupied, and then you move to phase two to erect that building. Did that address your question?
But the only thing we're here for tonight is the actual text amendment,
Yeah, I understand that. Since she's here, I thought I'd ask.
because it may not be that planned. Mr. Young,
I'm
you
sure.
got any?
question.
Mr. Boney?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and y'all, this may have been confusing from the outset because of the 5 buildings, but I believe as I understood Mr. Moffitt's more simple description, the multi-use applies to the individual buildings. So theoretically, you could have multiple uses in those 5 buildings, each of the 5 buildings. The other question I had, which I think he also alluded to, is he referred to it as conceptual site plan. So this is not a site plan that's yet been approved by the city or even submitted as a site plan.
We have looked at this site before. Like I mentioned, that building 3 back here, in the rear does have the technical review committee approval stamp on it to be constructed as is right now.
Sorry, which one is that?
This building 3 at the back, the largest one. Yes, sir. And as it currently stands, it's, there's 2 lots. So, on this side of the stream, creek, whatever you want to call it, is somewhere in that vicinity is this lot. And then it separates over into this lot as well. So technically right now they could build building 3 and building 1, pending building 1 TRC approval and of course, building permit approval, because they both have access to, Cherry Lane through there.
But I would just say, Mr. Bodie, that for purposes of the question before us tonight, this is just an illustration.
All right. So, and, Mr. Chairman, one more question, which I hate to ask when y'all haven't asked, but is there any limit on how many multiples within each building? Here or anywhere else?
Not per the text language. Is that something that staff has considered?
I think we've taken into consideration, Not really a maximum number that's inside of there. I mean, of course, it's all gonna be bound to whatever's fiscally, makes sense for the developer applicant, whoever it may be. The only thing that we have really taken a look at is if you all were to do a complete 180, and separate these for, use by right and special use and classifying such as, square footage requirement for approval of one or the other. We haven't really thought about the number of units that's gonna go inside of here.
So 750,000 square feet is a pretty large building, which could theoretically house numerous tenants.
Correct? As it's written out, yes, sir.
And staff is okay with that?
Like I
Without
said,
a limitation?
we have, just provided what we've been presented, on behalf, like I said, we were prepared to kind of have discussions in regards to, the kind of difference between, special use and not. And that is kind of where that square footage requirement came in. I mean, if you wanted to limit it, I mean, I think it makes sense. If you were to, I don't know if it would be a square footage of each unit, a maximum or minimum amount that's required. But then, like you said, you're getting into the weeds, but it also is in the weeds when you could potentially have, 15, however many 20,000 square foot areas inside of there. But essentially, that's what you'd be permitting.
That 750 is the cumulative amount. Is that
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Total,
Of all five.
five.
And I can't read, but I presume that if I get it closer up, each one of those is labeled as to how many square feet each one has.
So building 3 right now has got 290,000, I believe, square feet.
Back, so.
How like, Cameron, building 3, put the arrow there again for building 3. You
Right
see-
here.
Okay, got it. That's the big one. And building 1,
Over here on this, front
okay,
access.
got
here.
it.
Any further questions for Ms. Squires? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else here in the audience that would like to ask any questions about this particular project? All right, seeing there's none. Close this public hearing and have a discussion amongst ourselves. I do think that, the word sites needs to be removed from the text language itself,
Mhm.
Cameron, so.
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with the multiple tenants in the building, or the limitation in numbers of individual tenants that can go in a building. I don't have a problem with that at all. If we're gonna, allow it, it just needs to work for owners or the developers that it will work without causing, chaos.
I concur with you, sir. I don't have a problem with it, other than removing the on-site. I think the text amendment pretty much covers, exactly what the intent is without actually moving into an area that's vague. I don't see where we can add much to it or subtract anything from it that would be advantageous.
I think the wording as it is will be useful not only in this situation, but for multiple. Mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, there's smaller scale people that are looking at some properties that are wanting to kind of do the same thing on, a smaller scale, and this would definitely benefit them as well, so.
That would be
Don't have a
advantageous.
problem.
definitely.
On site.
Mr. Young, you have any objections?
No.
Well, hearing there's no more questions, I'd like to make a motion, that we approve the text amendment, with the removal of the word site,
On,
On-
on site.
on site. As written. Does anyone like me to change anything, any other?
Yes, sir.
I don't think so.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, folks. Well done.
Yes, sir, no problem. Y'all have a good day. Nice, I should say.
All right, do we have any non-agenda items that anybody would like to talk about?
I have none, sir.
Just a question about the long range plan.
Mhm.
Hadn't heard anything out of Ms. Dawn in a while, and
Yeah.
We hadn't had a meeting in a while, so just curious about where that's going since we're on the topic of is this or is this not part of the
So yeah,
industrial park? Let's go ahead and get on that.
That's
and
right.
this,
Determine for the neighbors out there.
Ms. Valeris we actually had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago. Of course, there has been a plan draft provided, to you all, I believe, a while back, I would say. She's been kind of reaching out, following up to see if there's been anything. She is no longer going to be there. I think it was last week, maybe it was her last week. So we've been working with Jesse Day individually and another gentleman, I cannot remember his name. But the idea is for us to take a look at it and update it. It looks, it's like a typical Word document. I think there's some sprucing up that they're going to do, visuals, things of the like. But everything that we've talked about during steering committee meetings have been taken into consideration. But yeah, check your email, look at it, see if there's anything that you would like to provide me that we can provide them. We're still kind of chopping it up as right now. As soon as we can get something drafted up and fully fixed up on the aesthetic side of things as well, we provided the city council, or no, you all, and then city council in the draft format and kind of keep it going until we have an approved product.
Did that email come from you or Dawn?
Dawn, yes, sir.
Okay.
And if you get up with me tomorrow, if you can't find it, I'll send it over to you.
Any further? On the
You
agenda?
might want to go ahead and resend that. I don't recall having.
Oh, well, that was a part of the steering committee.
Okay.
I think Mr. Huffine and Chair Ward were a part of the steering committee.
Right.
But you all will see it eventually because it does have to go in front of multiple reads for planning board and city council. So we'll probably have, hopefully it's 1 month that we don't have anything else to deal with and we can just hash it out for a couple hours and take a look at it and make recommendations and go from there.
Bring the pizza.
We might can have a little bit of party, take a little recess, why not? See if they'll let me borrow the credit card, who knows?
Staff got any further comments for us?
No, sir. I think, we're gonna stay particularly busy, so, keep your schedules open for the next planning board, third Tuesday, 6:30. We got a couple items that are gonna be coming through, another text amendment and 2 more development projects. It's gearing back up. I guess warm weather comes out, people wanna start building some stuff. So, yeah, we're gonna try and keep y'all as busy as possible, and it keeps us busy too, so.
Thank everyone for attending the special meeting and this, under the short notice. And, if there's nothing more, I will make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.